What if you lived in a medieval castle? Welcome, dear listener. Welcome to this quiet corner of the night. Before we step across the drawbridge together, before we walk through stone halls and sit beside the fire of history, I ask you softly, if these gentle journeys bring you peace, if these drifting stories help you find rest, please like this video and subscribe so that these stories may always return to you. And tell me in the comments below, where are you listening from tonight? Are you curled safely beneath your blankets? The glow of your phone like a lantern in the dark? Are you traveling? Headphones resting against your ears? The road passing by unseen? Or perhaps you are somewhere far away, in another country, another time zone, letting these words carry you gently through the long hours. Wherever you are, I would love to know the place, the moment, the stillness where you are listening now. Now, take a slow breath and let yourself settle. Loosen your shoulders. Let the weight slide downward. Heavy, but easy. Let your jaw soften. No need to clench or hold. Let your breath grow longer, deeper. Each exhale like a small surrender, a letting go. Feel your body resting heavier upon the bed, the chair, the couch beneath you. The world outside can wait. Nothing is demanded of you here, only to listen. Slowly, softly, as though the words themselves were a quiet stream, carrying you away. Perhaps in your room tonight, there is a fan humming softly. Let its sound become the background of this story. If you wish, tilt it just slightly. Let the breeze brush your skin. Steady, soothing, like the wind that once moved through castle towers, carrying the smell of stone and fire through narrow halls. Notice your hands, how they rest, open and calm. Notice your eyes, whether closed or heavy, or half open in a drifting haze. They need not focus. They need not follow every word. They can let the story become only rhythm, only comfort. For tonight, you will walk through walls of stone. You will sit beneath banners that ripple in firelight. You will hear the echoes of power, politics, and peace inside a medieval castle. But for now, only rest. Breathe in, breathe out, and let the journey begin. The night is quiet, your breath steady, your body resting heavier now, and in your mind, The landscape begins to take shape. You walk along a winding road, across fields where the grass whispers in the evening wind. The sky above fades from gold into violet, the last rays of the sun slipping behind hills. And there, rising against the dim horizon, you see it. The castle. Its walls climb from the earth as though the stone itself had chosen to rise. Towers stand tall, their silhouettes sharp against the fading sky. Flags ripple in the last light, colors barely visible, but certain. A mark of power, a sign of who rules within. You pause for a moment, simply to look, and the sight fills you with something more than wonder. It is awe, mixed with reverence, and perhaps a little fear. For the castle is not only a home, it is a statement. It speaks without words. It says, here is power. Here is safety. Here is authority. Here is permanence. Imagine approaching closer. Step by step. The fields give way to the village below the castle hill. Thatched roofs clustered together. Narrow streets alive with small fires as families prepare their meals. Children glance upward toward the fortress on the hill. Their laughter quiet for a moment. For the castle dominates not only the land, but the lives of all who live in its shadow. You climb the path, the road growing steeper, the stone of the walls rising higher. And as you draw near, details begin to emerge. Arrow slits narrow and dark, watching silently. Moss growing between stones that have stood for centuries. Torches flickering along the battlements, casting light that wavers like restless spirits. You hear the faint sound of metal on metal, the clang of a blacksmith in the outer yard. You hear the barking of dogs, the call of guards shifting their stance along the walls. Even from outside, the castle is alive, breathing through its people, its sounds, its scents. You stand now before the moat, water dark and still, reflecting the last glimmer of sky. The drawbridge rests across it, heavy timbers groaning with age, chains rattling faintly in the evening wind. This is the threshold, the line between the world of fields and villages, and the world of lords and power. For a moment, you do not cross. You simply stand there, letting your eyes travel upward. The towers seem impossibly high, the walls impossibly thick, and you realize that this place was not built for beauty alone. It was built for endurance, for survival, for control. It was built to say to all who look upon it, we are here, and we are strong. And yet, In the fading light, the castle is more than stone. It feels alive. The way the wind moves through its battlements, the way shadows shift across its towers, the way its gates seem both welcoming and forbidding. It is a presence, a character in its own right. Think of the villagers below. Each morning they look up and see it. It is their protection. In times of war they will run here, seeking safety within its walls. It is also their burden, for it demands their labor, their taxes, their obedience. The castle is both refuge and reminder. It gives and it takes. Think of travelers upon the road. When they see its towers rising in the distance, they know they are near power. Some approach with hope, bearing gifts or messages. Others approach with fear, knowing they will bow before laws not their own. The castle is both beacon and warning. As you stand there now, at the edge of its moat, you feel its weight upon you. Not only the weight of stone, but the weight of history. Every battle fought upon these walls, every feast held in its halls, every birth and death that echoed within its chambers, all of it lives here still. And you are about to step inside, to see not only the stones, but the life within them. But for this moment, you wait. You let the castle speak silently to you. You let its presence settle over you, like a cloak of stone and memory. And in that stillness, you understand. To live in a medieval castle was never only to live in a house. It was to live within power itself, to breathe its weight each morning, to hear its echoes each night, to feel its watchful presence in every moment of life. Breathe in, slowly. Breathe out, softer still. The castle waits, its gates closed, its torches flickering. And soon, you will cross into its world. The drawbridge lowers, slowly, groaning with the strain of chains and iron. Each creak echoes across the water, a sound that seems to stretch into the night air like the call of something ancient. The boards slam gently into place. Rough timbers worn smooth by centuries of boots and hooves. And before you lies the path inward. You take your first step, and the sound of wood beneath your feet feels different from soil. It is heavier, more deliberate, each step reverberating into the moat below. On either side, the dark water shifts and ripples, hiding secrets, shadows. Perhaps the glint of a fish or the unseen sweep of something deeper. But your eyes are drawn forward, to the towering gatehouse ahead. Stone arches rise like jaws. Thick walls layered upon walls. The gate itself, a heavy portcullis. Teeth of iron pointed downward like the fangs of some slumbering beast. Above you, arrow slits stare silently. Watchmen shifting unseen behind them. You feel their gaze, though you cannot see their faces. Every movement of yours is noted, measured, weighed. You pause beneath the archway. The sound changes here. Your footsteps echo. The air grows cooler, heavy with damp stone. It smells faintly of iron and smoke. The scent of oil rubbed into chains. To your left, you glimpse the grooves where the portcullis would fall, to trap intruders like prey in a hunter's snare. To your right, you sense doors that lead into guard chambers, where men-at-arms rest with spears in hand, always ready. Crossing the gatehouse is not simply walking through. It is being tested, being judged. Every stranger who enters must feel its weight, must know they are not in their own domain. And as you step beyond its shadow, you feel it too. The castle accepts you, but reminds you. It does so on its terms. Emerging now into the outer bailey, you hear life stir around you. The clang of the blacksmith's hammer upon iron. Sparks flying into the twilight air. The stamping of horses in their stalls. Their warm breath clouding the chill evening. Children run barefoot through the dust, darting between barrels and wagons. Laughter ringing lightly against heavy walls. Servants carry buckets of water, baskets of bread, bundles of firewood, their voices murmuring as they pass. The castle lives, not only through its towers, but through its people. Still, you glance back at the gate you have crossed. The portcullis looms above, silent now, but ready. The drawbridge rests behind, waiting to rise at any moment. You realize the gate is not only entry, it is separation. Once closed, it divides utterly those within from those without. And now, you are within. The ground beneath you feels different. Packed earth beaten firm by countless boots. Stones set into paths leading toward the keep. The air smells of smoke from hearths, of hay from stables, of food cooking somewhere unseen. You are no longer a traveler gazing at the castle from afar. You are part of its breath, its pulse, its rhythm. Guards pass you, armor clinking softly, their eyes sharp. They nod, or glance briefly, before continuing their rounds. Their presence is constant, a reminder that even inside, safety is never certain. Vigilance is never relaxed. You hear bells toll faintly from deeper within, calling servants to their tasks, perhaps signaling the closing of gates for night. Each sound carries meaning here. A bell is not only a bell. It is a command, a summons, an order that ripples through the castle's life. Crossing the gates, you understand something new. The castle is not merely stone. It is order. It is rules unseen but felt. It is a rhythm set by walls, by watchmen, by rituals repeated day after day. And now, you are part of that rhythm. Close your eyes and imagine standing just inside the gates. Behind you, the drawbridge rests across dark water. Before you, the bailey stretches out, alive with movement, alive with sound. And beyond it all, rising higher still, the keep waits, its towers watching silently, its walls holding secrets, its heart beating with power. Politics, peace, and perhaps peril. The gates have closed behind you now. The castle has accepted you, and there is no turning back. The castle is not only walls and gates, not only towers against the sky. It is power made stone, politics made visible. For every block laid, every hall raised, every banner flown from its battlements, speaks of authority. As you step deeper into its courtyards, you feel that weight pressing upon you. It is not the weight of stone alone, but of command, of rule, of lives shaped by decisions spoken in these halls. At the center of this world stands the Lord. He may be a duke, or a count, or simply a baron granted land by his king. But within these walls, his word is law. When he speaks, voices fall silent. When he lifts a hand, men rise to obey. His authority rests not only on title, but on the presence of the castle itself. For these towers and walls are extensions of his will. Beside him, often unseen by history's louder chronicles, stands the lady of the castle. Her power is quieter, woven into counsel offered in private chambers, into the management of estates when her husband is away, into the alliances she forges through marriages and correspondence. Her influence flows through relationships, through whispers, through the soft diplomacy of hearth and hall. And in times of war, she too may command, rallying defenders, deciding which gates to close, which supplies to ration, Politics here is not abstract. It is daily. Every meal in the great hall is a stage of power. Every feast a negotiation. Every gift a calculation. The Lord invites neighboring nobles, allies and rivals alike, seating them carefully according to rank. A guest placed closer to the dais feels honored. One placed at the edge feels insulted. Even where one sits at a table becomes a message. Politics is also justice. The castle is a court. Peasants from the village arrive with grievances. A boundary disputed. A theft alleged. A quarrel over inheritance. They kneel before the Lord, or his appointed judge, and plead their case. The judgment given is more than resolution. It is reinforcement, a reminder that law flows downward from the castle, that peace in the land depends upon obedience to its authority. And politics is war. Behind every banquet, behind every sermon in the chapel, lies the readiness for conflict. The castle is not only a home, it is a fortress. Its towers hold soldiers. Its storerooms hold weapons. Allies may visit today, but tomorrow they may march against these walls. And so diplomacy and defense live side by side. Inside the chambers of the Lord, politics grows more intricate still. Messengers arrive carrying letters sealed with wax. They bring news of kings demanding taxes, of rivals plotting alliances, of distant battles that may spill closer. The Lord listens. His advisors counsel. Decisions must be made quickly, for hesitation is weakness. A promise written today may become a betrayal tomorrow. This is the dance of politics. Endless, shifting, dangerous. And you, as one living within these walls, would feel its echoes daily. If the Lord wins favor with the crown, your village prospers. If he falls from grace, soldiers may come to take what you have. If alliances are kept, peace endures. If they are broken, war returns. Your life, like every life within the castle's shadow, is bound to the tide of politics above you. But politics is not only crown to crown, lord to lord. It is also the subtle dance within the castle itself. Knights jostling for favor, servants whispering in corridors, alliances formed between families through marriage and gift. Even gossip carries weight, for words repeated often enough can shape decisions in chambers high above. The castle is not only defended by walls, it is defended by networks of loyalty and fear. Close your eyes and imagine sitting in the great hall during a feast. The fire roars in the hearth. Banners hang above. Music drifts faintly as minstrels play in the corner. At the dais sits the Lord, the lady beside him. Around the long tables sit knights and guests, their voices loud with laughter, but their eyes sharp, always watching, always calculating. Every toast, every smile, every silence is part of politics, and beneath the music and merriment, strategies are whispered, rivalries measured, alliances cemented in wine and bread. The castle is stone, yes, but it is also theatre, and power is the performance played within it. Politics here is not distant. It is lived. It determines what you eat, what you owe, where you serve, whom you may marry. It shapes whether your nights are peaceful, or whether the drums of war echo outside your walls. To live in a medieval castle is to live at the center of this dance. You may not hold a crown, you may not raise a banner, but each day you would feel its weight in the bells that call you to gather, in the laws pronounced before the hearth, in the shifting glances of those who sit in high places. Power and politics, peace and peril, are woven into the very stone. And by crossing the gates, by living here, you have stepped directly into their rhythm. You step deeper now, away from the courtyards, away from the bustle of stables and smithies, and before you rises a vast doorway, carved of oak so thick it seems to breathe its own strength. Iron hinges groan softly as it opens, and you step inside. The air shifts at once, cooler, shadowed, filled with the faint scent of wood smoke and stone warmed by fire. You have entered the great hall. This is the heart of the castle, the place where power gathers, where voices echo, where life within these walls is displayed for all to see. The hall stretches wide, its roof soaring like the ribs of a ship turned upside down. Beams of timber arch overhead. Banners hang from them, their colors dimmed by smoke and time. At one end, the dais waits, a raised platform where the lord and lady sit in their high-backed chairs. Beneath them, long trestle tables stretch down the hall, planks polished smooth by centuries of elbows leaning close in feast and debate. A fire burns in the central hearth, flames rising toward a vent high above. Its crackle is steady, comforting, yet powerful. The fire is not only warmth, it is symbol. The heart of the castle beating visibly, the center around which life gathers. During feasts, this hall glows with noise and light. The fire roars louder. Candles flicker in iron sconces. Torches line the walls. The air fills with the scent of roasted meat, fresh bread, spiced wine poured into cups of silver and clay alike. Musicians play in the corners. Minstrels strum lutes. Flutes weave melodies. Drums mark the rhythm of the night. Knights laugh loudly, their armor clinking as they gesture with mugs raised high. Servants hurry between tables, balancing trays heavy with food, pitchers dripping with ale. The Lord sits at the head, his eyes sharp even amid the merriment. For feasts are never only feasts. They are displays of power. Theatre where authority is performed. Here, alliances are forged over shared cups. Rivals test one another with words masked as jest. Loyalty is measured by who sits closest to the dais, who receives the choicest cuts of meat, who is left waiting with the scraps at the far end of the hall. Even laughter carries meaning, for in the great hall, nothing is ever only what it seems. But the hall is not only for feasts. By day, it becomes a court. The Lord sits in judgment. Peasants kneel before him. Knights stand as witnesses. Clerks record decisions with quills scratching against parchment. Disputes over land. Accusations of theft. Quarrels between neighbors. All are brought here. Justice is not impartial. It is political. Each ruling reinforces authority, reminding all that law does not live in parchment alone, but in the will of the one who sits upon the dais. At other times, the hall becomes a council chamber. Maps are unrolled across tables, candles dripping wax upon them. Advisors gather close, voices low, arguing strategies for war or trade. Every decision echoes outward into lives far beyond these walls. And yet here, in this hall, they are spoken as if they were simply lines drawn upon parchment. And still, the hall is also a place of memory. Within its walls, generations have feasted, fought, prayed, judged. Every stone carries echoes. The laughter of a wedding feast long ago. The cries of judgment passed in anger. The hush of prayers whispered before war. All of it lingers. 1,000 invisible threads woven into the air. If you lived here, you would walk this hall often. Perhaps as a servant carrying dishes, your head bowed as you moved swiftly between tables. Perhaps as a knight standing proudly near the dais, waiting for your name to be called in service. Perhaps as a guest from afar, measuring every glance, every word, knowing your fortunes depended upon them. or perhaps simply as one of the many who labored unseen, sweeping ashes from the floor at dawn, long after the feast had ended. Close your eyes and hear it now. The clang of mugs, the murmur of voices rising, the laughter that swells, the sudden hush when the Lord speaks. See it. The firelight glowing upon stone, the banners shifting in draughts of cool air, the glint of metal upon the table's edge. Feel it. The weight of the hall pressing upon you, reminding you that you are within the very heart of power. The great hall is not only a room, it is the soul of the castle, a place where stone becomes story, where meals become politics, where silence becomes judgment. To live in a medieval castle is to live beneath the gaze of this hall. For whether you feast, or kneel in judgment, or simply sweep its floors, the great hall sees you, and in its firelit silence, it holds your place within the great design of castle life. The fire burns brighter tonight, logs crackling, embers glowing red as they leap and settle. The long tables are polished, benches drawn into place, platters carried from kitchens heavy with food. Tonight is not an ordinary night. Tonight is a feast. In a medieval castle, a feast is never only a meal. It is a spectacle, a performance, a declaration of power dressed in the disguise of hospitality. Imagine the moment you step into the hall as the feast begins. The air is already thick with the scent of roasted meat, venison glazed in honey, boar turned slowly over fire until its skin crackles. Platters of fish gleam with herbs. Baskets overflow with bread warm from the ovens. Cups of wine and ale are filled and refilled, until the sound of pouring is as constant as the murmur of voices. Minstrels sit at the edge of the hall, their lutes strumming soft melodies at first. But as the night unfolds, their music will rise with the noise of the crowd, shaping the rhythm of laughter and song. The lord and lady take their seats at the high table upon the dais, their chairs carved high, their garments heavy with embroidery. Beside them sit honored guests, chosen carefully. For here, even the placing of seats is strategy. A rival seated close is not insult. It is watchfulness. An ally placed far is not neglect. It is balance. Every choice is message. Every arrangement a sentence in the language of power. Servants hurry to and fro. Their arms ache beneath trays of meat and bread. Their feet whisper across the floor as they move quickly, yet invisibly. No feast could exist without them. And yet they are not seen. They are shadows that carry abundance from kitchen to table, then fade back again into silence. At the high table, goblets are raised, toasts declared, words of loyalty, of friendship, of triumph over rivals. Each toast is more than cheer. It is promise. To raise a cup here is to bind yourself to the politics of the hall. To refuse a toast, or to hesitate even for a moment, is to invite suspicion. And the feast itself is theatre. The food is abundance made visible. A castle that can feed hundreds in a single night is a castle that proclaims its wealth and strength. Dishes arrive one after another. Peacocks cooked and then redressed in their feathers. Golden beaks gleaming in torchlight. Swans carried in with necks arched high. Spices sprinkled not for taste alone, but to remind all that the castle's reach extends across distant seas. Sugar sculptures gleam, rare and precious, shaped into towers and beasts that mirror the very world of stone around you. The feast dazzles, but it also disciplines. It shows servants their place. It shows guests their standing. It shows rivals that resistance is futile against such wealth and order. And yet, amid the spectacle, life continues. Children sneak bites of bread when no one is looking. Dogs pace beneath the benches, eyes shining as they wait for scraps. A minstrel sings a ballad of love between verses of valor, and laughter rings out that is not political, but true. For even in a hall where power is on display, humanity slips through. Still, politics never leaves entirely. Perhaps a guest drinks too deeply and speaks words that reveal secret doubts. Perhaps a servant overhears a whispered bargain between knights. Perhaps the Lord himself leans close to his advisor, giving orders hidden behind the veil of merriment. The feast glitters, but beneath its glitter runs a current of strategy. And when the night stretches long, when the fire burns low, when the last platters are cleared, the hall grows quiet again. The guests stumble to their chambers. The servants sweep the floors. The musicians pack their instruments. Only ashes remain in the hearth. But the echoes linger. For every feast leaves behind more than crumbs. It leaves alliances, promises, tensions, all carried forward into the days ahead. Close your eyes and see it. The torches flickering, the banners swaying, the long tables alive with faces glowing in firelight. Hear it. The rise of laughter, the clink of goblets, the music weaving softly through the air. Smell it. The spices, the roasted meats, the sweetness of fruit carried far from warmer lands. Feel it. The press of bodies in celebration. the energy of 100 voices rising together. This is not simply dinner. It is politics disguised as joy. It is strategy baked into bread. Authority poured into wine. Power roasted upon a spit and served with ceremony. In a medieval castle, a feast is more than food. It is power made edible. And as you sit here, watching the firelight flicker across faces, you understand that every bite taken tonight is part of the endless dance of power within these walls. The feast has ended. The hall grows quiet. But outside, in the courtyards, another rhythm takes hold. The clang of steel on steel. The thud of wood against shields. The steady call of captains drilling their men. This is the world of the knights, the guardians of the castle, the warriors whose loyalty and skill keep its walls alive with power. Imagine stepping into the training yard at dawn. The air is cold. Mist rising from the earth in pale tendrils. Horses stamp impatiently, their breath clouding in the chill. Young squires hurry about, carrying armor to their masters, fetching water, tightening straps. The ground is churned with mud and straw, scarred by endless hours of practice. Here stand the knights, clad in chainmail that glints faintly in the morning light. Their swords ring as they strike against one another. Slow at first, then faster. The sound carries across the castle, echoing from stone walls. It is music of a different kind. Music of discipline, of war. Knights were not merely soldiers. They were symbols. Symbols of chivalry, of loyalty, of courage that was praised in song and sermon alike. But behind the poetry, there was labor. Endless labor. To wear armor was to carry weight heavier than words can tell. To fight with sword or lance was to endure pain. Bruises hidden beneath mail. Hands blistered from the haft of weapons. And yet, they endured. For the knight's duty was honor. And honor demanded sacrifice. Think of the squire, a boy of noble birth sent at a young age into the service of a knight. He rises before dawn, tending to armor still sticky with rust from the day before, polishing until it gleams. He runs to fetch his master's horse, brushes its coat, straps its saddle tight. He watches the drills closely, learning each strike, each defense. For one day, he too will take up the sword, and with it, the burden of defending his lord's domain. Warfare in a castle was never distant. Even in times of peace, knights trained endlessly, for peace was fragile. and the next call to arms could come at any hour. Tournaments, too, filled the castle with the clash of arms. Not war, but spectacle of war. Knights rode into the lists, lances lowered, armor gleaming. Crowds gathered, banners fluttered. Ladies watched from balconies with veils and ribbons streaming. The thunder of hooves, the splinter of wood, the cheer of onlookers. All of it was theatre, but theatre with teeth. For every tournament was both sport and preparation. A knight's victory brought honor to his lord. A knight's failure brought shame. And so even the play of battle carried politics. But when true war came, the castle itself became a weapon. Walls bristled with archers. Towers rang with the roar of catapults or trebuchets hurling stone. Knights rode out through the gates in gleaming columns, banners raised high, their armor dazzling in sunlight. Behind the spectacle lay danger. Death waited beyond every hill. Yet to ride was duty. To fight was expectation. And those who faltered risked not only their own lives, but the standing of their house. War was not always glorious. Sometimes it was siege. Long months of hunger and waiting. Knights pacing along battlements. Restless. Unable to ride out. Armor growing rusted in the damp. Tempers fraying in the endless watch. And beneath the walls, enemies camped, their fires burning through the night. For every heroic charge sung by minstrels, there were weeks of tedium, of fear, of staring at the horizon waiting for attack that never came. Yet knights were bound to their role, bound by oaths of fealty sworn upon holy relics, bound by loyalty to their lord, bound by the unspoken code that shaped their very identity. Without this code, the castle would crumble from within. For walls are strong, but walls require men to hold them. Close your eyes and hear the training yard again. The clash of swords, the bark of orders, the grunts of men straining beneath the weight of practice. See the sweat shining on foreheads, the sparks flying from steel, the horses circling restlessly at the edge. Feel the energy in the air. Half discipline, half pride. For in these moments, the castle is alive with readiness. To live in a medieval castle was to live among knights, to watch their drills each day, to hear their songs of valor by night, to know that when banners were raised, they would ride out first, and to know too that their victories and failures would ripple through every life within these walls. Knights were more than warriors. They were the living arms of power. And without them, the castle would be stone alone. The castle was never only a home. It was a fortress, a shield of stone, a silent warrior waiting for war. Every tower, every wall, every gate was built not merely for beauty, but for survival. Close your eyes and imagine standing upon the battlements at dawn. The air is cold, wind cutting across the high wall. Below, the land spreads outward, fields and forests stretching into the horizon. But your eyes are drawn to the defenses around you. The walls rise thick, layered with stones stacked by countless hands, wide enough for men to walk side by side, carrying bows, shouldering spears, rolling stones to hurl upon attackers. Arrow slits pierce the walls, narrow from the outside, but wide within. Through them, archers may fire unseen, yet remain shielded from arrows that fly in return. At each corner, towers stand higher still. From them, watchmen scan the horizon, their eyes sharp, their horns ready to sound at the faintest sign of danger. And higher yet, the keep, the great tower at the castle's heart, a final refuge if every wall should fall. From its height, banners ripple in the wind, their colors declaring loudly who holds power within. Every gate is a trap disguised as passage, drawbridges that can be raised in an instant, leaving moats to swallow the unwary, portcullises that drop like iron jaws, locking intruders in narrow corridors where arrows rain from above, murder holes carved into ceilings, through which stones, boiling water, even burning pitch may fall upon enemies who thought themselves victorious. This is the castle's language. Every stone speaks defense, every curve of wall, every stairwell twisting clockwise to favor right-hand swordsmen above, every design chosen to give advantage to those within. And when siege comes, the castle changes its breath. Outside the walls, armies gather. Their fires glow through the night. Their tents spread like fields of cloth across the horizon. Engines of war creak and groan, trebuchets swinging like giants, hurling boulders that crash against walls. Arrows darken the sky. Ladders rise like forests against the stone. Inside, the castle braces. Archers line the walls, strings taut, arrows flying like whispers of death. Knights patrol the gates, armor gleaming even in soot and dust. Women carry water to douse fires. Children fetch stones to be hurled from the walls. Priests walk among them, murmuring prayers against fear. The air is thick with smoke, sweat, iron, and the steady pounding of engines outside. A siege is not only battle. It is waiting. Days stretch into weeks. Weeks into months. Food grows scarce. Water dwindles. Bellies ache with hunger. The once proud feast hall falls silent. Now bowls hold only thin gruel. Bread stretched thinner each day. Rats scurry in corners. Sometimes caught. Sometimes eaten. Every sound from beyond the wall stirs unease. The crack of stone against stone. The shout of soldiers at night. The groan of ladders pressing against battlements. Fear grows heavy. But so too does determination. For within these walls lies not only wealth, but life itself. If the castle falls, all within it may perish. And so they endure, waiting for relief, or for the enemy's hunger to outlast their own. Sometimes sieges end in fire, walls breached, gates splintered, soldiers pouring inside with swords drawn. The clash is brutal, fast, merciless. The castle's defenders fall, and its halls are filled with cries and smoke. Banners torn down, replaced by the victor's colors. What was once refuge becomes conquest. But sometimes sieges end in silence. The attackers tire. Their supplies vanish. Disease spreads through their camp. At last they break camp, leaving only ashes behind. And within the walls, the weary breathe again. Victory is survival. Nothing more. Nothing less. To live in a castle was always to live with siege as shadow. Every wall you walked beneath, every tower you glanced toward, was built with the memory of hunger, of fire, of cries in the night. Even in times of peace, the castle never forgot. Its stones stood not as decoration, but as promise. A promise that those within would be shielded, for as long as stone and courage could endure. Close your eyes, and imagine standing once more upon the battlements. The wind cold, the torches flickering. Far below, an army waits, their fires glowing red against the dark. But here upon the wall, you stand tall. The stone is beneath your feet. The bow is in your hand. And the castle itself breathes with you. It protects and demands. It endures and asks you to endure with it. This is the truth of a medieval castle. Not only home, but fortress. Not only hearth, but wall. Not only shelter, but weapon. Peace in a castle is not a trumpet sounding, not a banner unfurled with sudden triumph. It arrives quietly, like dawn slipping through shutters, like mist softening the edges of stone. After months of watch and worry, the walls exhale. Guards walk their rounds more easily, the weight of armor a little lighter. Children laugh again in the courtyards, their games no longer hushed by fear. And in kitchens and halls, the air is thick with warmth, with bread rising slowly in ovens, with the smell of herbs simmering in pots of stew. To live through peace is to feel the castle breathe differently. Every sound softens. Where once you heard the clang of swords in the yard, now you hear the ringing of hammers upon tools for farming. Plowshares, horseshoes, hinges for doors that have creaked too long. Where once bells told warnings, now they ring the hours of prayer. The steady rhythm of life restored. Walk with me into the market that gathers beneath the castle walls. The road is lined with stalls, bright cloth awnings flapping in the breeze, baskets heavy with apples, onions, nuts freshly gathered from the forest. Merchants smile. Voices rise and fall in bargaining. Children dart between the stalls clutching small coins, eyes bright at the thought of sweet cakes baked with honey. The air is alive with scents of herbs drying, roasted meats sizzling on skewers, freshly baked loaves stacked like bricks of gold. And above it all, the castle towers watch silently, guardians not only of war, but of prosperity itself. Inside the walls, peace reveals itself in small labors. Masons climb scaffolds to repair cracks left by storms. Carpenters plane smooth beams for new roofs, their curls of wood falling soft to the ground. Gardeners bend low in kitchen plots, tending beans and onions, rosemary and thyme. Every task is ordinary, yet every task is precious. For these small acts hold the promise that life will continue. The lady of the castle walks the bailey with her ring of keys. She stops at the buttery to taste the new butter churned from spring milk. She visits the storerooms where grain sacks are stacked neatly, rows tall as walls themselves. Her eye is sharp, her voice gentle, her work unseen yet vital. For prosperity does not glow only in feasts. It grows in the careful tending of stores, in the steady keeping of accounts, in the quiet strength of order. The Lord rides out with a smaller retinue, not to war, but to hear petitions in the village below. Farmers bring news of crops, of rivers that need dredging, of paths that need mending. Disputes are settled with words instead of swords. Hands are clasped, promises exchanged, and though power is still uneven, there is a sense, however fragile, that peace belongs to all, and peace brings celebration on holy days and feast days. The castle fills with music. Jugglers and tumblers arrive, their bright clothes shimmering in torchlight. Minstrels pluck at lutes, singing songs of saints and heroes, of lovers who endured, of villages that flourished after war had passed them by. Children laugh at painted clowns. Crowds gather to watch wrestlers grapple in the dust. And as night falls, torches are lit in the bailey, and dancers move in circles, their shadows spinning against the walls. It is not victory. It is relief. And relief is its own kind of joy. Prosperity, too, is visible in the rhythm of meals. Bread is baked in larger loaves. Meat appears more often upon the tables. Spices arrive from far-off markets, their scents filling the hall with warmth and wonder. Feasts are not nightly, but when they come, they remind all who sit at the table that peace itself tastes sweet. Even the chapel glows differently in these days. Candles burn not in desperation, but in thanksgiving. Voices rise in chant not hurried by fear, but steady, confident, grateful. Priests bless the fields, sprinkle holy water upon tools. Prayers for harvest mingling with the scent of tilled earth. And in quieter corners, there is leisure. Knights still train, but their swords strike slower, more measured. Archers still practice, but they laugh as they string their bows. Wagers made in jest. Children run freely in the courtyards, no longer shushed, no longer pulled back by anxious mothers. Even dogs sleep more soundly, stretched in pools of sunlight near the hall's doors. Close your eyes and feel this peace. Hear the chatter of the market below, the hum of bees in the orchard, the faint music of a minstrel singing by the gate. See the colors of cloth hung to dry, the green of gardens, the glow of torches at festival night. Smell bread just out of the oven, herbs crushed beneath footsteps in the grass, wine uncorked in laughter. Feel the calm of walls no longer trembling with siege, stones warmed instead by afternoon sun. Peace in a castle is not the absence of labor, but the presence of balance. It is the knowledge that tonight the gates will close only against darkness, not against armies. It is the comfort of food stored, of tools ready, of people singing together after long silence. It is the rare gift of life allowed to be ordinary again. And so, In this season of peace, the castle feels less like fortress, more like home, less like a shield raised, more like a hearth glowing. And as you sit quietly in its halls, you understand. To live in a medieval castle was to live not only in fear of war, but also in the tender miracle of peace. Moments when stone felt softer, when voices lifted in song rather than cry. Moments when prosperity meant more than wealth. It meant simply enough. Breathe in, deeply, slowly. Breathe out, letting your body rest heavier still. Let this peace settle into you, as if the castle's calm has become your own. And know that even in history's hardest places, there were seasons of quiet abundance, seasons of life restored. Peace and prosperity may fill the halls with laughter, may swell the markets with goods, but beneath it all, guiding each day like an unseen hand, is faith. In a medieval castle, life was threaded with ritual. The rhythm of bells marked the hours, not only for monks and priests, but for servants and lords alike. Matins before dawn, lords at sunrise, prime as the day began. Each prayer was a pause, a reminder that life here was not only labor, not only politics, but also devotion. Close your eyes and step with me into the chapel within the castle walls. The door is small, heavy oak darkened by centuries of touch. Inside, the air is cooler, still, scented faintly of beeswax and incense lingering in stone. Candles flicker before carved saints, their light trembling gently. Colored glass filters the sun, scattering ruby and sapphire pools across the flagstones. Here, voices lower, footsteps soften. At the front, a priest stands in vestments. His Latin words drift upward like smoke. Ancient syllables few understand fully, but all feel deeply. The chant rises and falls, steady, hypnotic. It is not meant to stir excitement, but to calm, to humble, to remind each listener that beneath crown and cloak, armor and apron, all are souls alike. Rituals touch every life here. The Lord and Lady kneel together, their heads bowed, rings glinting faintly in candlelight. Knights cross themselves before riding to war, pressing lips to relics said to hold the bones of saints. Servants whisper prayers as they grind grain or draw water, asking for strength, for mercy, for safety through the day. Children murmur words half-learned, tracing the sign of the cross with small, uncertain fingers. And faith is not confined to the chapel. It spills into every chamber, every courtyard. Meals begin with blessings. Contracts are sworn upon relics. Even punishments are carried out with prayers for the condemned. Faith sanctifies power, and power defends faith. Their union as solid as the castle walls themselves. Festivals mark the seasons. Holy days filling the castle with processions. On Easter, bells ring loud. Flowers strewn upon the chapel floor. A feast after fasting. At Christmas, candles glow in windows. Songs echo through the hall. Gifts exchanged not only among lords, but from lord to servant. A gesture of grace. At midsummer, torches blaze in courtyards. Fires leaping high into the night. Their sparks drifting like prayers into the stars. And yet, faith also carries fear. Whispers of sin, of judgment, of the devil's snares waiting in shadowed corners. Superstition threads through ritual. A charm hung above a cradle. A prayer whispered before opening a new barrel of ale. Faith and fear, light and shadow, lived side by side. But more than fear, it was structure. A pattern of days that gave meaning to labor. A rhythm that softened sorrow. A promise that whatever trials the castle endured, they were part of a larger story. A divine order unseen but felt. Close your eyes again, and hear the chapel. The low chant of monks. The single clear note of a boy chorister rising like a star through night sky. The echo of bells rolling through stone corridors. Each toll a heartbeat of sacred time. See it. Candles glowing against old walls. Colored glass washing saints in blue and red. The gentle smoke of incense curling upward. Feel it. The hush upon your skin. The stillness pressing gently against you. To live in a medieval castle was to live within faith's embrace. Every act touched by ritual. Every choice shadowed by devotion. And whether you believed with certainty, or whispered doubts in secret, the rhythm carried you still, like the tolling of bells across the valley. Constant, patient, unending. The castle, for all its stone and steel, for all its cannons and gates, was not only built for war, it was built for continuity, for family, for lineage, for in these walls, the greatest victories were not always battles won, but heirs born, marriages forged, bloodlines secured. Close your eyes and imagine the Lord's chamber. A vast bed carved of oak. Curtains heavy with embroidered cloth. Within it, the future of the castle was often decided. For a son or daughter born here was more than a child. They were an heir, a thread tying the family to its land, to its rights, to its claim of power. Birth was both joy and politics. The cry of a newborn meant celebration. Bells ringing, feasts held, but also tension. For the survival of lineage was fragile. Infants often died in their first years, and each birth carried both hope and fear. A boy meant a clearer succession. A girl meant alliance through marriage. Each child carried weight beyond their small frame. They were the castle's tomorrow. Marriage, too, was never only affection. It was alliance, strategy, treaty in the language of kinship. When a daughter of the castle married into another house, lands might join, armies might combine, disputes might end with a kiss and a clasped hand. When a son married, it often meant dowries gained, fortunes expanded, loyalties secured. The wedding ceremony in the chapel was both sacred vow and political seal. The feast that followed was both celebration and public declaration of power joined to power. Lineage was guarded fiercely. Scrolls and charters stored in chests, proving descent, proving right. Heraldic symbols painted on shields and banners, each line and color telling of ancestors long dead. The past was kept close, because it was the foundation of the future. And yet, lineage was fragile. A single child lost to illness, a single heir slain in war, and a line could vanish. Families schemed to protect it. Alliances made. Disputes flared. Sometimes brothers fought brothers. Cousins turned against cousins, each claiming the right of inheritance. And the castle itself might become prize in such quarrels. Not just home, but symbol of legitimacy. Inside its walls, family life unfolded with rhythms both tender and harsh. The lord ate with his household in the great hall, but in private chambers, laughter of children softened the stone. Nurses rocked infants by the fire. Mothers stitched small garments by candlelight. Stories were told at bedtime. Prayers whispered at cradles. Even in a fortress, there was gentleness. But children of noble lineage grew under expectation. Boys sent to serve as pages in another lord's hall, learning courtesy, letters, the first lessons of arms. Girls taught to manage households, to oversee servants, to prepare for marriages that would shape dynasties. Their childhoods were brief, their destinies never their own, for lineage demanded sacrifice. Still, affection lived here, brothers chasing one another through corridors, sisters whispering secrets in solar chambers, a mother's hand resting upon a fevered brow, a father lifting his child onto his shoulders to see from the battlements. Even within politics, there was love. Lineage carried memory, stories of ancestors told by firelight, tales of courage and sacrifice, sometimes embroidered, sometimes true. Children listened wide-eyed, absorbing not only family pride, but duty. For to belong to a lineage was to inherit not only wealth, but responsibility. The castle itself carried those memories. Portraits painted on walls, tombs carved in chapels, coats of arms set in stone above gates. Walking through its halls, you felt surrounded not only by those living, but by generations watching still. The castle was never empty. It was filled with the invisible company of ancestors, and lineage stretched forward too. Each marriage arranged, each child baptized, was another stone placed upon the wall of continuity. Another assurance that this castle would not stand alone in years to come. That when its lord and lady were gone, another would sit upon the dais. Another would bear the banners to the wind. Close your eyes and imagine a quiet night in the solar. A mother bends over her embroidery, a daughter watching her hands learn each stitch. At the window, a father tells his son of battles fought, of treaties signed, and in the cradle nearby, another child sleeps, their breath soft, their future unwritten, yet already bound to the destiny of the house. This is family in a castle. Not only love, not only duty, but lineage. A thread that ties past to present, present to future. To live in a medieval castle was to live inside that thread, to be bound by names written long before you were born, to carry hopes that stretched beyond your own life, to know that stone may crumble, banners may fade, but lineage was the truest fortress of all. Behind the banners, behind the feasts, behind the lineage carefully preserved in charters and cradles, lay another truth. A castle could not breathe without the many who labored within it. Their names seldom written, their voices seldom recorded. And yet, every stone kept standing, every fire kept burning, every meal set upon the table was their doing. Close your eyes and walk with me into the lesser-known corridors, not the vaulted great hall, but the narrow passages where footsteps echo against bare stone. Here the air smells not of incense or wine, but of smoke, of sweat, of bread rising in hidden ovens. At dawn, long before the lord or lady stir, the castle is already awake. Servants rise in the cold, their breaths clouding in the dim light. The cook calls out orders as boys carry logs to the kitchen hearth. Scullions scrub pots blackened from the night before, hands red with soap and cold water. Laundry girls bend over steaming tubs, beating linen with wooden paddles. Stable boys brush horses still drowsy in their stalls. The sound of straw rustling beneath hooves. In the great hall, long before feasts, servants sweep ashes from the hearth, lay rushes fresh upon the floor. Benches are straightened, goblets polished until they catch the torchlight. Every detail must be perfect, for when power sits down to dine, it expects not to notice the hands that prepared its table. Above stairs, chambermaids move silently. They open shutters to let in pale light, shake out blankets heavy with night's warmth, tuck linen smooth upon carved beds. They place jugs of water for washing, combs upon the table, candles trimmed and ready for the evening to come. If the lady walks through her chamber and finds the work invisible, then the servants have done it well. And in the outer bailey, the labour is louder still. Smiths hammer iron into hinges, into nails, into the points of arrows. Carpenters plane wood for wagons and barrels. Masons chip stone for repairs, dust rising like smoke from their chisels. Each sound is a note in the great orchestra of maintenance, without which the castle itself would crumble. Food flows through endless hands, milk carried from the dairy, cheese pressed and salted on wooden boards, grain ground in mills, flour sifted fine by women bent long over sieves. Cooks stir vast cauldrons with ladles taller than children. Spices measured carefully. Precious grains of saffron and pepper guarded like gold. All so that the high table gleams with abundance when the feast begins. But while lords taste luxury, servants often dine on what is left behind. A crust of bread, a ladle of thin pottage, the scraps carved from bones. Their meals are eaten quickly, standing, before returning to labor again. Children, too, play their part in this hidden world. Pages carry messages through corridors, their voices echoing as they hurry between lord and lady. Young boys run errands, fetching water, carrying kindling, polishing boots until they shine. Girls learn to sew linen until their fingers ache, or to stir kettles until their arms are sore. Childhood here is brief. Responsibility arrives early. The steward watches it all. His ledger holds not only rents and coin, but tasks and schedules. He ensures fires are lit, that candles are trimmed, that wagons arrive with supplies. He is the quiet general of the invisible army. And though he may never sit at the dais, his command is as vital as the Lord's in battle. Labor does not stop when night falls. Guards keep watch upon the walls, pacing slowly with torches in hand. Kitchen boys bank the fires so that embers survive until morning. Women spin flax by candlelight, their wheels humming softly through the long hours. The castle never sleeps fully. It dreams in shifts, one hand passing to another, the work never ending. And yet, even in labor, there are moments of joy. A kitchen maid humming as she kneads bread. Two grooms laughing as they chase a stubborn mule through the yard. Children sneaking bites of cheese when the steward's back is turned. Even in the shadow of endless work, humanity flickers warmly. To live in a castle as servant or laborer was to live unseen. Yet without these lives, no lord could rule, no lady could host, no knight could ride to battle with a full stomach and polished armor. Their toil was the quiet foundation, invisible, but indispensable. Close your eyes and listen. The crackle of fires being lit, the clang of smiths at their anvils, the hush of servants' footsteps on worn stone. See it. Candles glowing in narrow passages, hands red with water, backs bent beneath sacks of grain. Smell it. Bread baking in the kitchen hearth, hay sweet in the stables, soap sharp in the laundry. Feel it. The weight of labor that never ends, but also the endurance that never falters. The castle's grandeur, its lineage, its power, all rest upon these hands. Hands that carry water, hands that scrub linen, hands that polish armor, hands that few remember. Yet without them, nothing endures. To live in a medieval castle was to live among them. To see their quiet labor each day, to hear their laughter in the margins of work, to know that history's loudest voices were carried always upon shoulders that remained unnamed. Within the castle's walls, life was not lived equally. Stone may have enclosed all, but expectation divided, shaping paths from the moment of birth. If you were born a boy, your destiny bent one way. If you were born a girl, it bent another. And though love and laughter softened the edges, roles were written deep, carried like invisible banners each day. Close your eyes And imagine the great hall. On one side, men gather with tankards in hand, speaking of war, of hunting, of alliances forged and battles remembered. On the other, women cluster together, their talk quieter, of children, of cloth, of the affairs of the household. Both groups live within the same stone, yet their worlds feel separate. For men, the path was shaped by duty outward, knights bound to training, to the weight of armor, to the strike of sword against shield. Pages sent young into service, learning to bow, to serve wine, to carry messages, until they were old enough to lift steel themselves. Even noble sons bore pressure, their lives not their own, but bound to inherit lands, to lead retainers, to stand before their people as judge and protector. For women, the path was often inward, to tend households, to oversee servants, to stitch linens until the light faded from the chamber window. For noble daughters, the loom was matched with lessons in diplomacy, for they would one day be wed not for love alone, but to seal alliances. For peasant girls, labor came earlier, carrying water, grinding grain, learning to care for younger siblings as soon as they could stand steady. Marriage was destiny for many. A son was groomed to inherit or to fight. A daughter was groomed to marry, to bind houses together through vows spoken in the chapel. Her worth measured in dowry, in beauty, in the alliances her hand could bring. And yet, women were never without influence. The lady of the castle commanded quietly, keys at her girdle clinking as she walked. She oversaw storerooms, kitchens, the weaving of cloth. Her authority might not shine from banners, but it shaped the rhythm of life more intimately than any sword could. And in times when the Lord was absent, riding to war or traveling to court, it was she who held the castle's reins. Still, expectation weighed heavily. Women who spoke too boldly risked censure. Men who failed in courage risked shame. Each gender bound by an invisible code. Men to valor, women to virtue. And yet life was always more complex than the codes claimed. In kitchens, men worked too, turning spits heavy with roasting meat, carrying cauldrons from fire to hall. On hunting fields, noblewomen sometimes rode beside their husbands, hawks upon their wrists. At night in solar chambers, fathers softened as they cradled infants. And in battle, women sometimes defended walls, hurling stones from battlements when men were too few. Life blurred the lines that duty drew, even if history often forgot to write those blurs. For servants, roles were also divided. Men in stables, smithies, fields outside the walls, women in laundries, kitchens, weaving rooms where looms clattered like quiet thunder. But all labored alike, bending backs to stone and fire, and all carried burdens unseen by the lords who dined above. Children too felt the pull of roles early. A boy given a wooden sword, praised when he struck boldly. A girl given a needle, praised when her stitches were small and neat. Play itself was preparation, the earliest rehearsals for lives they were expected to live. Religion sanctified these roles. Priests preached of man as protector, woman as nurturer, of Eve's sin and Mary's purity. Examples bound like chains and like crowns. And so faith reinforced what culture demanded, making the pattern feel as immovable as stone walls themselves. But beneath it all, humanity whispered differently. A boy might dream not of war, but of song. A girl might long for adventure beyond the gate. And sometimes they defied their roles quietly. A daughter learning her letters by candlelight. A son slipping into kitchens to learn the secrets of spice. Small rebellions, rarely spoken, yet carried forward. Close your eyes and picture the castle again. Men drilling in the yard, swords flashing, voices loud, women in the solar, needles moving, voices softer but no less certain, servants in every corner, men and women alike, their labors woven into one cloth. The castle is whole, yet divided. This is how it was. Not hatred, but structure. Not cruelty alone, but expectation so deep it felt like the air itself. To live in a medieval castle was to live within these roles, to carry them each day like invisible armor or invisible chains. And yet, within the roles, love persisted. Individuality flickered. Men laughed together in halls. Women whispered secrets in chambers. Children dreamed dreams beyond the patterns given them. Stone may have shaped their lives, but spirit still found ways to breathe. The castle was not only walls of stone, not only halls of feast and prayer. It was also a court, a place where law was spoken, where order was enforced, where justice, sometimes fair, sometimes cruel, was carried out beneath the eyes of all. Close your eyes and imagine the great hall transformed. No feast upon the tables now. No music from minstrels. Instead, benches are filled with villagers, peasants, servants, all gathered in hush. At the dais, where the lord and lady once dined, now the lord sits as judge. Beside him, clerks with quills ready, priests murmuring prayers, advisers leaning close to whisper counsel. Before him kneels a man accused, perhaps of stealing a sheep, or breaking a boundary hedge, or failing to pay his owed rent. His hands tremble, his voice shakes. He begs for mercy. All eyes fix upon the Lord, for his word will decide guilt or innocence, freedom or fine, lash or pardon. Justice in a castle was not the impartial balance we imagine today. It was power in motion. The Lord's decision carried weight not only because of truth, but because it reminded all who listened that law flowed from the dais. Obedience was the price of peace. Sometimes, punishments were light. A fine of coin, a measure of grain, service in labor for a season. The guilty returned to their lives chastened, reminded of the Lord's reach. But at other times, punishment was harsh. A thief whipped in the yard, each lash echoing against stone walls as a warning to others. A murderer hanged before the gates, his body left for days as a grim lesson to passers-by. A traitor dragged to the dungeon, shackled in darkness where time itself seemed to vanish. The dungeon, cold, damp, carved deep within the earth. Narrow cells with straw upon stone, chains bolted to walls. The air heavy with mold, with silence, with despair. Few who entered left unchanged, for the dungeon was not merely a prison. It was fear made stone. Justice was also spectacle. Punishments were carried out publicly, so all could see. The whipping post in the bailey, the stocks at the edge of the market. Crowds gathered, not only to witness, but to remember. For memory itself was part of order. If one man's crime was forgotten, others might follow. But if it was burned into memory with lash and gallows, order endured. And yet, not all justice was cruelty. Sometimes mercy was shown. A lord sparing a man for the sake of his family. A woman forgiven theft because hunger had driven her. Such acts too were politics. For mercy displayed in public reminded all that the Lord was not only power, but grace. That his rule was not only fear, but fairness. Still, the shadow of punishment lingered always. To live in a medieval castle was to live beneath its watchful order. You might labor honestly, pray faithfully, Obey the rhythms of faith and duty. And still, fear the sudden turn of fate. A false accusation. A jealous rival's word. A careless mistake. And the hall could become a court. The Lord's gaze could fall upon you. And in that moment, your future might change with a single sentence. Close your eyes and hear the echoes. The clerk's quill scratching upon parchment, recording names, fines, punishments. The murmur of a priest reciting prayers for the condemned. The silence of the hall as judgment is spoken. Then the sudden noise of punishment carried out. The crowd's gasp. The cries of the guilty. The heavy silence that follows. See it. The torches flickering against stone. The faces of villagers pressed close to witness. The Lord upon the dais, his expression unreadable. Smell it. The smoke from the hearth lingering. The sweat of the crowd. The iron tang of fear itself. Feel it. The weight in the air. Heavy. Unrelenting. Reminding all who stand within these walls that order is never free. Justice and punishment were as much part of the castle as feasts and prayers. The hall that glowed with merriment by night could chill with judgment by day. The same Lord who raised a goblet in laughter could raise a hand to condemn. And so, power in the castle was complete, for it ruled not only joy, but fear. To live in a medieval castle was to live within that balance, to know that peace rested upon obedience, that obedience rested upon law, and that law rested upon the voice of one who sat at the dais. Stone may have held the walls, but justice held the people. And punishment, sharp, visible, unforgettable, was the shadow that made justice endure. Day fades slowly within the stone walls. The last of the light lingers in the high windows. Streaks of gold sliding down until only shadows remain. And then, the castle becomes something different. At night, the fortress breathes in whispers. Torches are lit one by one along the battlements, their flames bending with the wind. Shadows stretch long against the stone, twisting into shapes that move like silent figures. Guards begin their watch, pacing slowly along the walls, their boots echoing softly, their spears glinting faintly in the firelight. From below, the village grows quiet, smoke curling from chimneys before sleep, dogs barking once, then settling into silence. Inside the walls, life softens. The great hall, once loud with feasts or tense with judgment, is dim now. Only a few embers glowing in the hearth. Benches pushed back. Tables cleared. Rushes rustling faintly when a stray breeze slips through a shutter. The hall sleeps, and yet it feels as though it remembers. Echoes of laughter and sorrow lingering in the rafters like ghosts. In the kitchens, fires are banked for morning. Coals buried beneath ash to keep their heat alive. A boy yawns as he sweeps the last of the crumbs into a basket. A scullery maid hums softly to herself as she stacks pots in the shadows. Then silence returns, broken only by the occasional hiss of an ember settling. Up in the chambers, candles are extinguished. Curtains drawn close around the Lord's bed. Children tucked beneath blankets heavy with fur. A nurse whispering a final prayer against nightmares. Servants curl upon pallets of straw. Their bodies weary but their minds drifting already into dreams. But not all sleep comes easily. For night in a castle carries its own weight. The creak of timbers in the roof may sound like footsteps above. The cry of an owl may be mistaken for something else. And in the deep dark, even stone seems to whisper. Legends say castles never truly sleep. That stones remember. And at night they murmur softly, carrying the weight of history through their walls. Some swore they heard voices in the chapel long after the priest had left. Others claimed to see figures upon the battlements when no guard was posted there. Whether truth or imagination, night wrapped the castle in mystery. For the guards upon the wall, night is long. They pace steadily, their torches casting circles of light in the darkness. They listen for sounds beyond the moat. The rustle of trees, the bark of a fox, the distant splash of water against stone. Every noise is measured, every shadow questioned. For though the night seems still, safety is never assumed. For those within, night brings dreams. Dreams of peace, of plenty, of fears too. A knight dreams of battle, his hand twitching upon an unseen hilt. A servant dreams of freedom, walking roads that stretch beyond the horizon. A child dreams of flying above the towers, seeing the castle from the sky. And somewhere, someone wakes, stares into darkness, and wonders whether the dream was more real than the waking. Close your eyes and imagine yourself there, lying upon a bed of straw or a mattress stuffed with feathers. Above you, beams creak gently. Outside, the wind sighs against stone. Somewhere distant, a watchman coughs, and you feel the great weight of the castle around you. A weight that is both protection and confinement. The air at night is different, cooler, carrying the faint scent of smoke and damp stone. Candles have burned out. leaving only the glow of torches beyond. Darkness fills every corridor, every chamber. And yet, in that darkness, there is safety. For the gates are closed, the bridges raised, the watch is awake. The night may be long, but the castle holds you within its arms of stone. And as you drift into sleep, the castle itself seems to dream with you. The towers silent against the stars, the moat dark as ink, the walls breathing softly, as though the fortress itself is alive, guarding, sheltering, enduring. This is night in a medieval castle, a time of whispers, of dreams, of shadows stretched long, a time when the stone softens, and even power rests, until the first bell of dawn, when life stirs again. A castle, for all its stone and strength, was never only defended by walls. It was defended, and often endangered, by whispers. By day, power was displayed openly, banners rippling, feasts shining, judgments spoken in the hall. But by night, and in corners unseen, power moved differently, through murmurs, through secrets, through quiet conversations where glances mattered more than words. Close your eyes and picture a narrow corridor at dusk. The torches burn low, their flames fluttering against the walls. Two figures pause in the shadow, voices hushed. They do not look at one another. They stare straight ahead, speaking softly so that even stone cannot carry their words too far. A promise is made, an oath sworn in secret. And in that moment, intrigue breathes within the castle's heart. For politics does not live only in the great hall. It thrives in kitchens where servants whisper of what they overheard. It stirs in solar chambers where noblewomen trade letters, sealed and carried by trusted hands. It spreads in training yards, where knights speak quietly of loyalty, of discontent, of rewards promised if allegiance shifts. Intrigue can be as small as gossip, a maid spreading tales of who dined beside whom, a page repeating words spoken in jest that sound more dangerous in retelling. Whispers become rumors. Rumors become truth when repeated enough. And truth, whether real or imagined, can alter the course of lives. But intrigue can also be vast. A lord's rival slipping a bribe into the hands of a discontented knight. A letter smuggled across borders promising marriage in exchange for betrayal. A priest quietly urging rebellion in the name of conscience. These are the currents unseen, moving beneath the visible order, in chambers lit by single candles. Decisions are made that never echo in the court openly. A steward favors one family over another when rents are due. A lady writes to her kin, urging them to press for her children's inheritance should her husband fall. A knight hesitates in loyalty, considering where his honor lies. Each act is small, but together they shape the very fate of the castle. Betrayals sometimes begin as whispers. A servant promises to open a gate at midnight, in exchange for coin enough to buy freedom. A guard glances too long at a rival banner, wondering if his fortune lies elsewhere. A scribe copies a letter twice, keeping one for himself, to wield later as leverage. Intrigue is not loud. It does not roar like battle. It waits in silence and strikes softly. Even love becomes intrigue. A knight stealing moments with a lady not his own. A servant girl carrying the child of someone above her station. Such secrets, if revealed, could shatter lives, could alter alliances, could send ripples through the hall greater than any war beyond the gates. And so, the castle never truly rests. Even when torches burn low, even when the Lord sleeps in his chamber, politics stirs in silence. The walls hear it. The stones remember it. Every shadow carries the weight of secrets not meant to be spoken aloud. Close your eyes again, and imagine walking through the castle at night. Your footsteps echo against stone. In the distance, you hear hushed voices fall silent as you pass. A door closes quickly. A servant hurries by, eyes lowered, carrying something hidden in the folds of cloth. You sense it everywhere. That tension just beneath the surface. That constant hum of secrets waiting to rise. To live in a medieval castle was to live not only with battles fought outside its walls, but with intrigue fought within them. To know that loyalty could shift overnight, that alliances could be undone with a whisper, that the castle's strength did not lie only in stone and sword, but in the fragile web of trust spun between those who lived inside. And so, every feast, every judgment, every prayer in the chapel was shadowed by whispers. For while power was displayed openly, it was also traded quietly. And often, it was the whispers that decided the future. Every castle carried with it not only stone, not only banners, not only politics, but also stories, legends breathed in its halls. Ghostly whispers drifted through its chambers. Superstitions clung to staircases and cellars like ivy upon old walls. For to live in a medieval castle was not only to live with war and duty, but also with mystery, with the sense that stone itself remembered. that the past never truly left, that shadows sometimes held more than mere absence of light. Close your eyes and imagine a child in the servants' quarters. The fire burns low. The night is deep. An elder leans close, telling stories in a hushed voice. Stories of the white lady who walks the tower at midnight, her gown shimmering like moonlight, her face pale with sorrow. Some say she waits for her lost lover. Others say she is bound forever to the place where she died. The child shivers, and yet listens wide-eyed. For in a castle, ghost stories were as common as prayers. Legends explained the unexplainable. A sudden draught in a closed chamber was said to be a spirit passing by. The groan of timbers at night, a knight's ghostly steps echoing still. Strange lights upon the battlements, the souls of watchmen who never left their post. And always there were warnings. A headless horseman riding across fields on stormy nights. A monk wandering cloisters long since abandoned. A lady who wept in the well at midnight. Each tale held both fear and lesson, reminding listeners that power was fragile, that sin carried consequences, that the dead were never far from the living. Superstition wove itself into daily ritual. A sprig of rosemary hung above a cradle to ward off evil dreams. Salt scattered upon thresholds to keep spirits from crossing. Candles burned in chapels at night, not only for prayer, but to keep shadows from deepening too far. Even the most powerful lord, the bravest knight, often made the sign of the cross when passing through a dark stairwell alone. Castles themselves seemed to invite legends. Their dungeons, deep, damp, echoing with cries long silenced. Their towers, high, lonely, open to wind and storm. Their halls, filled with echoes of voices long gone. Stone does not forget. And those who lived among stone believed deeply that neither did the souls who once walked there. Sometimes legends were tied to battles. A soldier who died defending the gates might be heard still, his armor clanking faintly upon the battlements. A traitor who betrayed the castle might appear in the courtyard on certain nights, face twisted with eternal shame. A woman who threw herself from the tower in despair, said to appear whenever storms gathered, her cry blending with the wind. Other tales were gentler. A spirit who lit unseen candles to guide lost servants in the dark. A ghostly knight who bowed silently to women passing through the solar. A white dog said to guard children as they slept, curling at their feet though no dog was there. Not every legend was fear. Some were comfort, proof that love, loyalty, and kindness lingered just as long as sorrow. Folklore gave shape to the unknown. And in the stillness of night, when torches flickered, when silence pressed close, when imagination stirred, it was easy to believe. Close your eyes and imagine walking through a castle corridor at midnight. The walls cold, your breath visible in the air. The only light, a torch flickering against stone. You hear a sound, faint, soft, like footsteps upon stairs. You turn, but no one is there. Only the whisper of stone settling. Or perhaps something more. This was the truth of castle life. Not only power, but presence. Not only lineage, but legend. Not only life, but the lingering of those who had gone before. For castles were not built upon empty earth. They stood upon memory, upon blood spilled, upon vows sworn and broken. And those who lived within knew that history leaves shadows. And sometimes those shadows walk at night. To live in a medieval castle was to live with these stories always near, told by firesides, whispered in kitchens, murmured by children before sleep. Whether you believed or not, you listened, for legends bound the people together, just as much as walls and gates did. They explained the unexplainable, softened fear, reminded all that they were not alone in the dark. And even now, centuries later, when travelers walk through ruined halls, they say they feel it still. That quiet presence, that breath of history lingering, that sense that in castles, the past is never past. Time inside the castle was measured not only by bells and candles, not only by feasts and battles, but by the turning of the seasons. Stone may feel eternal, yet even walls breathe differently in spring, in summer, in autumn, in winter. Each season lays its hand upon the castle, shaping its rhythms, reshaping its moods, reminding all who live within that power itself must bow to the wheel of the year. Spring. It begins softly. Snow melting from roof tiles, dripping into gutters, trickling down into the moat until the water shimmers again. The air smells faintly green, damp earth stirring beneath frost, herbs waking in walled gardens, children running courtyards with lighter steps, their laughter brighter after months of silence. Women hang linens outside for the first time, the cloth snapping gently in the wind like banners of ordinary life. In the chapel, prayers sound different in spring, less desperate, more grateful. The Lord rides along the fields beyond the walls, seeing furrows cut anew. The lady walks through orchards, noting buds upon branches, carrying hope in her eyes like blossoms unspoken. Servants sow seeds with careful hands, each kernel a small prayer hidden in the soil. At night, the castle breathes easier. The fires burn lower. Windows are opened to let in the soft air. And even the stone seems to sigh, as though relieved that winter has passed once more. Summer. Then warmth settles fully upon the walls. The moat gleams beneath the sun, lilies floating upon its surface, dragonflies flashing like sparks. On battlements, guards shade their eyes, the heat pressing heavy upon mail and leather. Life swells in summer. Markets below the hill fill with color. Baskets of cherries and herbs, cloth dyed bright as banners. Bells jingling from stalls. Inside the castle, kitchens grow hot with ceaseless labor. Bread rising, meat turning on spits, jugs of ale cooling in cellars. Children chase dogs in courtyards, their shouts carried upward by the long light of day. Summer is feast and festival. Jugglers arrive. Minstrels sing. Dancers turn in the bailey beneath torches that burn even though the night is warm. The great hall glows not only with firelight, but with abundance itself. Cups raised, voices loud, power displayed in laughter and plenty. But summer is also vigilance. Storms roll suddenly across fields, lightning striking towers with the voice of heaven. Disease travels quickly in the heat, and fear of plague lingers always in whispered prayers. So even amid joy, the steward keeps count. Grain stored, salt measured, caution hiding behind smiles. Yet for most, summer feels endless. Walls warm beneath the sun, nights alive with music, fields thick with promise. The castle shines as though it were built not of stone, but of light itself. Autumn. Then comes the turning. Air crisp, leaves burning gold. The year folding itself gently toward rest. The harvest is everywhere. Carts heavy with grain rolling through gates. Apples and pears stored in cool chambers. Wine pressed in deep vats that stain workers' hands purple. The smell of smoke drifts from kitchens where geese are roasted. Spices measured carefully for winter feasts. Inside, servants tally candles. Cloaks are mended. Boots repaired. The lady checks storerooms, ensuring salt barrels are full, ensuring nothing is wasted. The Lord oversees the last gatherings of rent and tithe. Coins clinking, parchment signed, The castle feels both busy and thankful. A hum of labor, but also a hush of relief. For with full stores, winter can be faced. Nights grow longer. Fires burn brighter. Stories return to their places by the hearth. Children listen to tales of saints and heroes, while wind rattles shutters outside. Autumn makes the castle turn inward, and in that turning, it feels closer, warmer, more human. Winter. Finally, the world narrows to frost and snow. The moat freezes at its edges. Walls sparkle with ice like jewels. The air is sharp, each breath visible in torchlight. Inside, life contracts around fire. The great hall glows with warmth and noise. Dogs curled upon rushes. Men and women sitting closer than usual. The kitchen works endlessly. Bread thick. Stews hearty. Ale brewed dark for long nights. Winter is hardship. Yes. Hunger always waiting at the edges. Illness carried by cold winds. Roofs creaking beneath heavy snow. But it is also intimacy. Families gather nearer. Stories passed from one generation to another. Songs sung softly to children drifting into sleep beneath fur blankets. Even lords and ladies seem less distant in winter, their voices mingling with servants around the hearth. For when cold presses close, all lives draw together. On feast days, the hall bursts with brightness. Candles in every window. Music echoing louder against winter's hush. A goose roasted. A pie filled with dried fruit saved from summer's harvest. For one night, even the harshest season bends to joy. Outside, the world sleeps. Fields white. Trees black against the sky. But inside, the castle endures. Wrapped in warmth, carrying its people through the dark until spring's light returns. The turning of the year. And so, the seasons circle endlessly. Spring's promise. Summer's plenty. Autumn's gratitude. Winter's endurance. Each one shaping how the castle lived. How power was shown. How peace was kept. For power was never only sword or banner. It was also the ability to feed through famine. To endure the storm. To keep warmth alive when the snow fell thick upon the roofs. Close your eyes and breathe the year with me. The scent of blossoms in spring. The heavy sun of summer. The crisp smoke of autumn fires. The cold silence of winter nights. Feel the stone beneath your hand change with each season. Warm. Then cool. Then bitter cold. then soft again with the breath of new air. To live in a medieval castle was to live not only in walls of stone, but in the circle of seasons. To rise with the turning year, to bend with its hardships, to rejoice in its gifts, and always to remember that even power, even stone, must bow to the endless wheel of time. A castle is never only stone, never only walls and towers. It is an idea made visible, a symbol carved into the earth. When villagers looked up each morning, they saw more than battlements against the sky. They saw authority, safety, order. They saw the shape of their world written in stone. Close your eyes and imagine standing in the fields below. The castle rises upon its hill, sunlight striking banners that flutter in the breeze. It looms, not to crush, but to remind that here is the center of power. Here is the hand that holds justice and command. Its towers are not simply architecture. They are declarations. For the castle spoke a language all its own. Its walls said, "Here is protection." Its gate said, "Here is control." Its chapel said, "Here is faith." Its hall said, "Here is authority." Each stone a syllable, each tower a sentence, together forming a story that all who looked upon it could read. To the Lord who ruled within, the castle was his throne of stone, a fortress to prove his might, a home to prove his dignity, a legacy to outlast his life. Every wall he built higher, every tower he raised stronger, was not only defense, it was statement. It said, "My line will endure. My power will stand. My name will not be forgotten." To his enemies, the castle was warning. Its silhouette on the horizon declared that conquest would not be easy. That within those walls lived men loyal, armed, ready. That even should villages fall, the fortress would remain. A hard knot in the landscape, refusing to be untied. To the villagers, the castle was both hope and burden. Hope, for in times of war its gates promised safety. Burden, for its taxes demanded their labor. Its shadow reminded them always of their place. They could not imagine their lives without it. The castle was their anchor, their ruler, their guardian, their master. And to travelers upon distant roads, the castle was wonder, a beacon of strength upon the horizon, a sign of civilization, of order in a wild and shifting world. Pilgrims whispered prayers when they first saw its towers. Merchants quickened their pace. Envoys measured their words carefully before entering. For the castle was never neutral. It demanded recognition from all who passed. The castle was also memory. Every stone laid carried the labor of hands long dead. Every scar upon its walls told of battles fought, of sieges endured, of victories won and losses borne. To walk its halls was to walk among ancestors. To sit in its chambers was to feel their presence pressing close, reminding the living that they too would one day be remembered only in stone. And so the castle was not only present, it was eternal. Even when banners changed, even when new lords took their place upon the dais, the castle remained, a witness indifferent to those who came and went. It was greater than any single life. It was the vessel of all lives within. Legends grew around castles not simply because of ghosts, but because castles themselves felt alive. Their presence heavy. Their voices carried in echoes through corridors. A castle seemed less a building than a being. Watching, remembering, enduring. And so it became symbol not only of a family, but of permanence itself. Close your eyes again, and stand once more at its gates. Feel the weight of towers above, the sweep of walls surrounding, the air thick with the sense of order. Look up, and you see not only stone, but meaning. The castle is crown made visible, law made tangible, history made solid. It is more than a place. It is an emblem. For to live in a medieval castle was to live inside a symbol, to eat beneath it, to work within it, to pray under its gaze. Every action you took, every thought you had, was colored by its presence. It reminded you daily that power was not an idea somewhere far away. It was here, above you, around you, enclosing you in stone. The castle was fortress. The castle was home. The castle was prison. The castle was sanctuary. And above all, the castle was symbol. A symbol that endured longer than its builders. A symbol that still endures even now. In ruins upon hills. In stories told to children. In our imagination when we hear the word castle. For long after the torches burned out, after the last feast ended, after the last knight laid down his sword, the castle remained, a silent symbol of power made stone. You have walked the castle now, through its gates, its halls, its chambers and walls. You have heard the clang of steel, the music of feasts, the hush of prayers, the whispers of secrets in corridors dark. You have stood in sunlight on battlements, and in shadows where stories of ghosts are told. You have watched the seasons turn upon its stones. Spring's blossoms, summer's glow, autumn's harvest, winter's silence, and through it all, the castle has revealed itself, not only as fortress, not only as home, not only as symbol, but as a world entire. To live in a medieval castle was to live within the very bones of power, to wake each day beneath its towers, to hear its bells mark the hours, to feel its presence pressing against every thought and every action. It shaped lives. It guarded them. It burdened them. It gave them meaning and it took their freedom. It was the hand that fed, and the hand that demanded. It was stone-made story. Close your eyes and see it once more. The drawbridge rising, the moat dark and deep, the portcullis heavy as a jaw of iron. Beyond it, the great hall glowing with fire, banners drifting in the draught of voices, knights training in the yard, servants moving with baskets and water, children running across the bailey, laughter rising into the air, dogs barking, bells tolling, torches flickering along the wall at dusk. Every sound, every sight, woven into the life of stone. The castle was never silent. Even in its stillness, it whispered of ancestors, of heirs, of seasons endured, of battles fought and feasts remembered. It held not only the living, but the weight of all who had ever lived within it. And when you stood inside its walls, you stood inside centuries themselves. Now, as you rest here, listening quietly, let the castle grow soft around you, no longer with the sharp clang of steel, but with the low hush of embers fading, no longer with the cries of judgment, but with the gentle breath of sleep falling upon its chambers. Imagine lying within its walls tonight. The great gates closed, guards pacing slowly along the battlements, torches burning low against the dark. Within your chamber, the shutters drawn, a fire glowing faintly in the hearth, a blanket heavy across your body, your breath slow, your eyes drifting shut. You are safe, enclosed by stone that has endured 100 winters, protected by walls that have faced armies and outlasted them. Tonight, the castle watches over you. Breathe in the cool air of the night. Breathe out. Let your body sink heavier. Feel the stone beneath you. Ancient, steady, eternal. Let its strength become your own. The castle stands, unbroken. And you too. may rest unbroken within it. Tomorrow, bells will ring again. Servants will rise. Knights will train. Children will laugh in the courtyards. Life will continue, as it has for centuries. But for now, the castle sleeps with you. Its stones dream with you. Its towers rise quietly against the night sky, keeping watch as you drift deeper and deeper. Let the weight of history slip away. Let the echoes fade into silence. Let yourself rest, knowing that the story is told. You have lived in the castle. You have walked its halls, felt its seasons, heard its whispers. And now, gently, it is time to close its gates. The castle remains, and you, at last, may sleep